So thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Kate Fletcher. I am the Inclusion Member Manager for Dial Global. Today I have the very wonderful Louis Armstrong from one of our partners, which is ISS. And I will let Louis introduce himself. Louis, over to you. Tell me, what do you do for ISS, and a little bit about why you're here today talking with me.
Yep, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. So I am a People and Culture Manager at ISS, and I partner with one of our accounts in the business partnering team. I'm here today because I also support our Pride ERG group in ISS, and have done for many years in different guises in different employments as well. Being inclusive is very much at the heart of what I like to do. What I want to ensure all our placemakers at our employment and under our employment are having that as well. So
fabulous, thank you, Louis. So we today are going to talk about, so Louis and I have spoken about this a few times, LGBTQ plus, what do the letters really mean? So some of the of what people have said has almost been humorous, we decided yesterday when we were chatting, and some of them not. Some of them are just outright rude. So today we're going to explore what the letters mean, how we don't all know what every single letter means. We don't get an email to let us know as part of the LGBT community that another letter has been added and exactly what it means. So we're all to some extent on a learning journey ourselves. So we will work our way through the PowerPoint. Hopefully, if I can make it work. Right, that's good. Can everybody see the next screen, which is a picture of me and Louis? Good, thank you very much. Just in case you don't know what we look like from seeing us on here. So the session itself is designed to create understanding, respect and inclusion in the workplace. According to Stonewall in 2023, 1 in 5 LGBTQ plus people have experienced discrimination in the workplace within the last year, which, although it's 2 years old, that data, that's still quite shocking in itself. And these are the ones that have been reported as well, let's remember. So firstly, we've already done a little bit of a welcome, but we'll go over some of the ground rules. So safe space, as long as the questions you ask are respectful, you can ask anything. And I have these conversations with even with my partner as well, who's also called Katie, just to get really confusing. She will come to me and say, what does this mean? What does that mean? And we'll have a conversation about it. And this is the kind of safe space that I want to create here as well. Ask anything. You know, if we don't know the answers, we can find out. But I'd rather that we give people the opportunity to ask things they've always wanted to, just to support their learning and education. It's a judgment-free zone where respect and curiosity are encouraged. So be curious and be respectful. Use the chat function or raise your hand to contribute. I will probably need, I'm looking at multiple screens, but I'm obviously not doing the best job. So if I could ask somebody else, Louis, if you could keep an eye on that for me, that would be fab, or Sam, or Cheska, or whoever else is here that could give me a hand. But yeah, raise your hand and use the chat function. There is a little quiz actually as we work through the PowerPoint of to see who knows their flags. No Googling beforehand, no cheating, because you won't know which flag I'm asking for. And that I would expect you all to use the chat function to see whether or not you get it right. And this is a learning mindset, so it's okay not to know, and what matters is how we learn, and again, respectful. Today's session is about creating that psychological safety. So when we speak about psychological safety, they're not just words, there needs to be meaning behind them. So when I think of psychological safety, for me, I want to be able to ask a question without being ridiculed or disrespected or humiliated. And I would obviously share that same respect with everybody on the call today. We're learning, not shaming. We'll explore the LGBTQ plus community through education, through collective education, personal stories from Louis and I, and obviously if you feel comfortable enough to share within the chat or talk about your own experiences, then pop your hand up and hopefully we'll have time to come to them, to come to you then as well. And also open discussion. So moving on, which button do I? So breaking down LGBTQ plus, we're going to go through the letters. So L is for lesbian. Now, I use the word gay to identify myself, so much so that my son came home from school and said, "Mum, someone called you a lesbian today at school." And I was like, "Yep, that's actually true. I am technically a lesbian." And he's like, "Oh, I was offended for you. Don't be. I just prefer to use the word gay." However, my dad hates the word gay and much prefers the word lesbian when he describes me to, well, to me really, because he hasn't actually told anybody else that I'm gay. Interestingly, so lesbians are women attracted to women, and only 2% of the UK population identify as a lesbian or gay women. So that's the ONS, is the Office of National Statistics, in 2023. So I'm going to let Louis describe the G is for gay. Take it away, Louis.
Indeedly, doodly, thank you. So it's usually men attracted to men. And as Kate said, typically lesbians can use that term as well. It is a free-for-all term. It is all good. So the gay term, sorry, hang on, lost my train of thought here. The term gay became more popular during the 1970s. Sometimes you do get others of different sexualities using the term as well, because it's used as a broad umbrella, rather than like, I suppose, pigeonholing yourself into smaller parts.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Oh, where's it gone? Oh, there, it's there. It's there. So, and as you can see by this little statistic here, you've got 0.1% more, Louis, there, as men identifying as gay than lesbian. So I guess in terms of taking over the world, you are winning by 0.1%. So well done. And thank you for sharing the term gay as well. Thank you.
So B is for bisexual. So these individuals are attracted to more than one gender. So typically males attracted to females and males, or vice versa, females attracted to males and females. Bisexuality has included transgender, binary and non-binary individuals since the release of the Bisexual Manifesto in 1990 as well.
It's a nice little fact there, Louis. Thank you. I wasn't expecting that. So T is for transgender. Now, to clarify, I have had on multiple occasions people assume that because I am part of the LGBT community that I have lived experience of being transgender. I don't. They're very different things. I'm not transgender. I'm a cisgendered woman. I was born a woman. I identify as a woman. Transgender is about gender. It is solely about gender. It is not about sexuality. Yes, trans people can be lesbians or gay men or bisexual or any of the other plus that we're about to talk about. But transgender isn't really anything to do with sexuality. So I don't have lived experience of a transgendered person. I can explore and I can listen and I can learn and I can educate myself, but I do not have that experience. There is division within the LGBT community of how not all lesbian, gay and bisexual people agree with trans ideology and vice versa. So there is some conflict and not everybody sits harmoniously within the LGBT community. And we will explore that. There is also some discomfort between gay men and gay women, because gay men tend to have more funding than gay women. Gay events tend to be more directed towards gay men, gay women, and bisexuals feel and have expressed that they've experienced bi-erasure, where they don't fit within the LGBT community at all, and they don't fit within the heterosexual community, so they're out in limbo. So all of these nuances within the LGBTQ plus community that people wouldn't know unless you speak to LGBT people. And of course, all of their opinions are different as well. So transgender people whose gender identity differs from their birth sex. 1% of UK adults identify as transgender or non-binary. And that, again, that statistic is from the Office of National Statistics. And then we move on to the Q+, queer and more. Louis, what's your thoughts on the term queer?
Yeah, so I still see it as a negative term, in all fairness, because I grew up around that terminology being used as a derogatory term. However, what am I trying to say? The times have moved on, and the LGBTQ plus community has like reclaimed that queer word, and it's now used by people as a specific identity, who are it's usually used as an umbrella term for anyone who is non-cisgender or heterosexual. So yeah, used to have negative connotations, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis. And I feel the same. I'm not a fan of the term queer, but I am old, so maybe that's why. I know a lot of younger people have reclaimed it, and you know, I'm not just limiting that to younger people, but I have done a couple of polls, just some research on that, on how comfortable people feel with the term queer, and there definitely seems to be a generational opinion on that, a generational divide. So I just see Jess Potts has popped in here, the chat. Do you think the statistics might be lower than reality because many people don't feel comfortable disclosing their sexuality or coming out to their friends and family? I absolutely do. I can't remember there was a study completed a while ago that actually used a sliding scale, of say 1 being completely heterosexual and 10 being like the super gayest gay person you could be. And there was a huge percent of under 25s at the time who didn't identify with being 100% heterosexual. So I think when now we have the less binary terms, then yeah, I think those statistics are definitely they are lower, but in reality they would be much, much higher. Definitely. So I have added a couple of points in, because Lewis and I, when we were speaking yesterday about the plus, and what the plus is, and the assumption as well that we would know, again, because we're part of the LGBT community, that we're going to know what all of these terms mean. So I did a little bit of research. So asexual or ace. Lewis, have you got any knowledge on asexual, before we go into a little bit of what it is?
Not specific knowledge. I've not met anybody who is asexual. Little fact about me, probably going way too personal, but there was a point in time where I thought I might be asexual. In that there was a very lengthy period of time where I was just not sexually attracted to anybody at any point in time. So I thought that might fit. But then, yeah, after many years of discovery, then I thought, no, gay more fits where I belong.
Okay. I think that's great that you've explained that as well, that actually you can go through this exploratory phase, most certainly when you're younger, to try and see where you are and who you are. And I think that's really normal, most certainly in adolescence, which technically stops at the age of 25. So up until, obviously it's not absolute, but generally speaking, up until the age of 25, you're still exploring your sexuality, and that can go on for many years after, depending on lots of different reasons, whether they be external or internalized homophobia or whatever. But interesting that you said that. So thanks, Lewis. Thanks for sharing. So asexual or ace, a person who experiences little or no sexual attraction to others. And what's important to note is asexuality is about sexual attraction, not necessarily about whether someone wants a relationship or can feel romantic love. Next, pansexual. And I'll be really honest, I wouldn't know what these mean unless I had them written in front of me. So pansexual, Lewis, any experience of, know anybody?
No, again, don't know anybody, but I'm very familiar with it. I feel like for some reason it's come into my world a lot more in the most recent years. But yeah, so and the way I describe it is very similar to what it said there, but basically it's anyone who's attracted to anyone really. They haven't got a sexual attraction to a particular gender. So an individual can be attracted to someone who is trans or someone who is non-binary. So that would come into it with regards to pansexual.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. One of my best friends is pansexual, and that hearts, not parts. I love that phrase. It's a great way to describe and remember. So moving on to intersex. So may well have seen a lot of intersex discussion in the press being brought alongside the transgender discussion in the ruling of the Supreme Court. So intersex meaning a person born with sex characteristics like chromosomes, hormones, or genitals that don't fit typical definitions of male or female. Well, it's important to know that intersex is about biology. It's not about gender identity or sexual orientation. And a really interesting fact, 1.7% of the population is born intersex, and that's about the same number of people with red hair, which is interesting, very interesting. And I haven't got into much research, but I wonder whether or not, obviously, red hair is genetic. I wonder whether there would be an element of genetics involved in that, whether it's hereditary or not. So interesting fact. So moving on to our lived experience. Now I smirk because I remember again yesterday, Lewis and I were chatting about some of the experiences that we've had. So if I bring up a couple of statistics first, and then Lewis, whilst I'm going through these stats, if you can have a think about, and I will share some of mine as well. So 43% of discrimination within, so of Black LGBTQ plus people have experienced discrimination from within the LGBTQ plus community, and that's a study done by Stonewall in 2018. There's a 4 times employment gap, so trans people are more likely to be unemployed than cisgender people in the UK. 20% with regards to community belonging. So 20% of bi people say they feel part of the broader LGBTQ plus community, which is tiny in comparison. Now, I use this phrase far too often. I think I said this yesterday, Lewis. When I was in the Met Police, there were more bisexual people in the Met, so an organisation of 45,000 people, than there were gay men or lesbians. And I know there were a lot of lesbians in the Met Police. I know there were a hell of a lot of lesbians in the Met Police, but yeah, still so many more bisexuals, but we didn't know any. Bisexual people really kept themselves to themselves because they didn't feel comfortable being part of the LGBT community or part of the heterosexual community either. So 1 in 5 lesbian and bi women have been given medical misinformation. They've been incorrectly told by healthcare professionals that they don't need a smear test, which is bizarre.
Baffling.
It is baffling, isn't it? It is baffling. 41% of trans people have experienced a hate crime or hate incident because of their gender identity in the past year, and that's from Stonewall from 2024. And research shows that homophobia, rejection, and social stigma contribute to much higher rates of poor mental health in gay men, including anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. So that's 4 times than average than heterosexual men. So with these lived experience and the one size fits all, and just to try and break down some of the stigma attached to all LGBT people experience the same kind of discrimination, the same kind of comments and assumptions. Have you got any examples, Lewis, of anything that you've experienced?
I suppose things like I smile when I say it, but because again, I don't think it's done in malice when people make these comments, but things that I've had in the past, like, oh, I'd never thought you would be gay, or you don't look gay, or you don't sound gay, which I don't call it out a load of times, but sometimes I have said, well, hang on a minute, how does a gay person sound? How does a gay person look? Why are you referring to that? So they're the typical ones you get, and then I've also, as we discussed yesterday, it's a lot of, I feel like with me being gay, conversations around sex feel like a more of an open door because I'm gay, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just out of curiosity from people, but you do get a lot of statements of like, oh, well, who's the top, who's the bottom, all that sort of jazz, which can make people feel very uncomfortable, and particularly in the workplace is not appropriate to be discussing. So yeah, it's things like that really that is my lived experience.
Thanks, Lewis. And for those of you who aren't aware, when people ask who's the top and who's the bottom, that's with regards to sex. And again, I find, as a gay woman, that our relationships, our sexuality is over sexualized. So people have a weird interest in sex. And I often see, most certainly around times of, whether it be Pride or International Day Against Homophobia or LGBT History Month, you see this, why do we need to know what's going on in your bedroom? And it really doesn't tend to be the gay people or the bi people that's talking about it. It's the heterosexual people with this interest in our sex life, which is really quite private. I mean, could you imagine if we were to ask people and be so open as like, what's your sexual preferences with your husband or wife? You just wouldn't do that. So we're treated with that lesser respect. So which then goes into, why do you still need pride? Well, because we shouldn't have to have those conversations. We shouldn't be made to feel uncomfortable. And I'm going back some years now, and it may well be partly to do with my age and obviously where I work as well. But when I was younger, I was asked multiple times for a threesome with men. Would me and my partner be interested in a threesome? And this would obviously be completely uncalled for. I'm not interested in that. I am not interested in penis whatsoever. It's a full no as a lesbian, a hard stop there. No, thank you. So why is that okay for people to ask me those questions? Why do men feel safe enough that they can ask inappropriate sexual questions of what I do with my partner and whether I'd be interested in an open relationship? It's bizarre. And it's a real problem, the over-sexualization. I know this happens for men as well. And actually, interestingly, Lewis, I don't know if you know, but the recent research that was done into sexual harassment, which is why we now have that new sexual harassment law, employment law, that came into force last year, it highlights that you are more likely to be victim of sexual harassment within the workplace if you are gay, whether you are a gay woman or a gay man, and bisexual as well, which is an interesting statistic, and would also raise that risk assessment when we look at the safety of people within the workplace. So yeah, that over sexualization is puzzling. For my mum is called Karen, my stepmom is called Karen, and then you've got the meme that is Karen. And just for complete transparency, I also work with a really lovely lady called Karen. We call her Kind Karen, and she's amazing. But for the other two, for the stepmom and the mum, they very, very much are the epitome of what the online meme Karen is. And she said things to me. I remember we had a workman come. So my wife is upstairs. She is pottering around upstairs in the bedroom. We've got a really lovely workman come around to look at a piece of work for us. And I was having a nice chat with him, and off he went. Nice looking guy. Not that that's relevant. And my stepmom says to me, "Well, Kate, you got on really well with him. Are you sure that you don't want a boyfriend?" My wife is upstairs. That's disrespectful, firstly. And secondly, it's not because I dislike men that, my son will grow into a man. I love men. I just don't want a relationship with men. I don't want to have sex with men. So again, that misinformation, that really simplification of sexuality. And I think yesterday, Lewis, we were talking about, again, and this is another one from my stepmom, who said, well, instead of having to pay for IVF and treat, why don't you just go and have sex with a man? Because I don't want to go and have sex with a man. Yeah, but it's cheap. You could just do it. Why do I even have to justify this? I don't want to go and have sex with a man. Well, how do you know you're gay if you've not had sex with a man? Well, how do you know you're gay if you've not had sex with a woman? I ask that back at you, Karen. And of course, she's disgusted by that. But that's the reality, when people are asking us these questions. The reality is would you do it? Well, no, you wouldn't, because you're not attracted to them. So yeah. Have you got anything else to add to that, Lewis? Any
No,
experiences?
you stole that one. I was literally just going to say that whole, oh, how do you know you're gay if you've not slept with a woman? Yeah, I've had that so many times, more so in the younger years. But I just wanted to pick up on what Katie said in chat here. She said that when there would be a Pride or coming out day at work, my old manager would say to me, "Oh, it's another day for you lot, for your lot rather." It's just, yeah, I don't get those types of comments whatsoever. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's discriminatory, but I can't think of the other term for it. But yeah, that'll make you feel incredibly uncomfortable in the workplace, and you're probably more inclined when hearing comments like that to be more inward and be more introverted and not be your true self at work, which is not acceptable, really. And that's what we've kind of tried to avoid at ISS and at other employers, especially teaming up with the likes of Dial and getting our help with diversity and inclusion stuff. So yeah.
Thanks, Lewis. Thank you. And I think when you have that, and also the assumption that because you're gay that you want to be marching. Like, I went to Brighton Pride when I was young. I've worked in the control room for London Pride, but I wouldn't attend personally now as an adult. I say as an adult before, but I'm not into the cupcakes and everything else. Really, what matters to me is seeing real action and having comments like Katie Betts has said not happen. They're the kind of things that need to be tackled. And then once we've tackled those, let's celebrate. And I'll have a cup. I mean, realistically, I'm not going to say no to a cupcake. Let me just for transparency and honesty here, I'm not going to say no to a cupcake. However, that's when it's time to celebrate, when we don't have people say, my old manager says, and I know that's obviously from the way that that's been worded was historic, but that is still allowed to happen. It still exists within many, many workspaces. And those inappropriate questions still exist within those workplaces as well. So Jess Potts has asked, have your parents accepted you now and still make comments, or do you feel they have still not accepted you? They haven't. I think I don't know about you, Lewis, but from my perspective, my parents, my dad hasn't told anybody that he works with or that he plays golf with or he socializes with that he has a gay daughter, which makes a question of where his grandsons come from. So, because surely people are going to ask where, how did you happen to stumble across your grandson? So no, mine haven't, but I'm actually past the point of really caring, to be honest. For me, this is why I do this work. This is why I want to make sure I speak up and I advocate for people who can't. And obviously, I don't limit it to just here. I was at an event a couple of months ago and I had some younger people come to me and say, I've never heard a gay woman speak in public like you have. And I just wanted to say thank you, because I've never been seen like that before. And you've given me the confidence to be able to come out to my friends. And I forget that there's still people living like that there's still people who can't come out. Because I go about my daily business with my gorgeous wife and my handsome son, and I'm happy, and I forget that there's still a lot of people who can't be out. So for me, that's a reality check, but I try and do everything despite them, really. So good question. Yeah. Thanks, Jess. How about you, Lewis? Are your parents?
I mean, I'm fortunate enough that both my parents were very accepting very early on as well in my teens. So yeah, I don't get any harsh comments or anything like that. I think your situation is so not uncommon. And then when you add in different cultures in the world as well and religions, etc., there are so many people that cannot be their true selves because of bigotry. And I would like to use the word unintelligent from Paul that's put in the comment, from people that are just very stuck in their ways. And yeah, it's such a shame that there's so many people that just can't be their true selves and actually come out. It still baffles me that we feel we have to come out, because in an ideal scenario, there would never be that whole coming out thing anymore. I don't know whether we'll ever get there, but just little things in conversations, etc., can help towards that. Just sort of saying, like, if you're meeting someone for the first time and you want to talk about personal things, rather than saying, have you got a wife, or who's your girlfriend, it's just tell me about your partner, and then it opens the door. Or just, I don't know, it feels simple to say, and that's why I feel like I shrug it off a bit, but to me it's more natural to talk like that rather than being what's the word I'm looking for, picking up on gender norms.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Lewis. I think from my experience as well, if people are just reading what Ross has written in the chat there, people if they make the assumption, I know I actually look quite bald today with I don't know why I have a black background. I don't like Zoom, but I don't. I have long hair. But I've had people say, "Oh, so what does your husband do?" And I say, "Oh no, my wife." Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, you don't need to apologize. Like, it's fine. Like, if I completely understand that you're going to make the assumption that I have a husband, and I'm not offended by that. But interestingly, if you flip that round, if I was to assume that a heterosexual person had a husband or a wife, or whichever, would then make them same sex, do they still get offended? And if the answer is yes, then there's still a problem there, isn't there? You've still got that bias and that homophobia, that you would be outraged that somebody has accidentally called you gay or bi. Whereas I'm like, God, I don't buy it. If it's a natural, I don't care. It's just one of those things that happens. You really, really don't have to apologize. It's just a polite correction, and then we move on. But it makes me feel awkward that they feel awkward. It's anxiety. What can we do? Anxiety. But I can understand how that often refers to your partner. And I feel that occasionally still, I'm quite hyper vigilant anyway. I guess 21 years in the Met's going to do that to you. But I can see whether or not people will be likely to be offended at the fact that I have a wife. And then I have to think, are they going to be even more offended that I have a husband? And is this going to cause me grief? Am I going to have to now have a confrontation or a conflict that I really don't want to have? And that's when I think I find it really challenging, because I can see those facial tells, I can tell the body language. And I've experienced homophobia very, very recently, even. So difficult. Right. I'm going to move to the next slide because we've been on here for a while. How do I do it? Oh, look. Sorry, I didn't realise we had this. So common misconceptions. There we were, sat on that page the whole time. So common misconceptions that people have. You don't look gay. What does gay look like? What does gay look like? Aren't bisexuals just confused? I thought queer was a slur. Obviously, we've covered some of these now. You're too pretty to be gay. I had that when I was younger, and also I must be 60-40. I must be 60% gay and 40% still liking men, because I must because I wear makeup. It's like, no, I am 100%. Lewis, you mentioned this one. How do you know if you haven't tried?
Yeah.
I haven't ever. Look at this as I'm a celebrity. I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. I've never tried, a fish guts milkshake, but I can tell you I wouldn't like it. I can tell you that. 1 in 4 LGBTQ plus people have heard offensive jokes about LGBTQ plus people at work in the last year, according to Stonewall, and that was 2023 as well. 35% of cisgender, so cisgender are people who are born male, female, and stay male, female. They're not gender queer, gender questioning, transgender, not binary, have mistakenly believed that transgender just means gay. That's a lot of people who think that transgender just means gay.
Yeah.
So I have a game, I have an exciting game. So flags and identity. There are over 20 different identity flags commonly used, but most people only know the rainbow one, according to a YouGov poll in 2022. 61% of Brits couldn't correctly identify the trans pride flag when showing the 5 options. So using the chat, people, which flag, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, is the trans pride flag? Right, come on now. People are quick on this. Look how quick these are coming in. Now, replay whilst you're answering this. When I used to work in the silver ops room, it's called. So it's second in command for all of London, and we'd be in this like bunker underground, watching all of the CCTV of London Pride, and my colleagues, I would be there as LGBT advisor for lots of different reasons. And my colleagues would always ask me, Kate, what's that flag? What's that flag? What's that flag? What's that? I would never know. They'd be zooming in on CCTV. You must know what that flag is. That's not why I'm here. That is not why I'm here. And I'm still no good at the flags either. So I can tell you that the trans pride flag, and I didn't need to research this one, by the way. It is number 4. So well done to everybody who got this right. It is number 4. That is the trans. Number 5 is, I'm not going to tell you because it might be on the next slide, another question actually. So we will go through these. Well done, Katie Betts. Well done, everybody who said number 4. So next one. Oh yeah, I'm glad I didn't say. So which flag is the Progress Pride flag? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What are we going for? 5, 5, 5, 5. Lots of number 5s. Oh, all number 5. You knowledgeable bunch. Excellent. Good, 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 good. Okay. Which flag is the pansexual? And now Maeve can be happy that the intersex flag is there as well. And an extra question for you, which one's the intersex flag then, Maeve? I reckon intersex is 2. I reckon intersex is 2. Well, you'd be reckoning right. Intersex is number 2. Well done, with a he there as well. Yes, you celebrate. And number 1 is pansexual. So well done to everybody who got those right. I'll tell you, you did better than me. Louis and I were talking yesterday. There's no prizes for this, so you can keep your chicken dinner to yourself. We were talking yesterday about some of the extra flags that aren't on here that actually mean, and we're really getting into the depths of this now, but if anybody went to London Pride or they saw it on TV or whatever, you may see some of these flags with a paw print or I can't remember any of the others, and I'm just going to say an otter print. And we were both discussing that we didn't really know what they meant. And that then does digress into more of a sexual preference as opposed to your sexuality. And there are lots of different terms which you can Google, and I won't go into today, but if you fancy reading about it, just make sure you've got your search restrictions there. Don't search at work. So we move to the Ask Us Anything Q&A session. So be brave, people. Drop us a question in. A couple of questions would be great. Is there anything about the LGBTQ community that you would like to know that you haven't asked before? Whether it's a bit of myth busting or something like, have you always known you were gay? How do you know you're gay? I don't know. You're all quick with the answers to the flags. So please come to us with some questions.
I will pick up a comment that James Perry said earlier. He said when we were talking about the changing environment with people not needing to come out and all that jazz. He says he thinks it's changing. His daughter is 14 and has several friends who openly identify as gay, trans, or bisexual, and everyone in their age group seems to accept it 100%. So yes, this is definitely something I'm seeing a lot more. Kids seem to be a lot more accepting nowadays, and with every generation comes change, and a change in attitude towards it, which is brilliant to see. And this is why the movement is changing, isn't it? And we can see good work that's been had throughout, not just us guys on this call, but if we're continuing these conversations and we're talking to our young ones about it, then it'll, what's the word? I can never speak properly, can I? It'll eke into everyone's lives quite easily.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think whilst I agree, and I really agree wholeheartedly with that. I mean, when I was at school in the late 80s, 90s, I I mean, I didn't even know what a lesbian was. You know, I just had a really good friend. I really liked this friend. And I didn't realize why. There wasn't, and that's where we can say representation is so important for younger people, because they can helps them kind of figure out who you are. And I didn't know. I just knew what I should be and who I should be. And gay slurs weren't even, I don't think, that much of a thing when I was at school. It was more on the news, it was more within my family. But my son has experienced, so he was that, this is, so he's recently gone to secondary school. He's just coming up to the end of year 7. And 2 months into secondary school, he is standing outside his PSHE lesson, like class. And the pride flag was in his PSHE class. And a kid who was standing next to him said, "All gays should be burnt." Just out of nowhere. And we live in a nice area. It's a nice school. And that was this kid's response to seeing the pride flag, "All gays should be burnt." Now, and this is where it's difficult to separate, because my perspective of that was absolute internalized homophobia. When I was pregnant, my mum was quite open with the fact that she said queers shouldn't have kids. And I unfortunately still carry that with me a little bit. So I always feel like I have to prove my parenting a little bit more than I think your average parent. I always feel like I need to make sure he is achieving, that he is kind, that he is, and that I'm doing well as a parent. Actually, it's not even about him, it's that I'm doing well as a parent because of that opinion that queers shouldn't have kids, is what my mum said. So for me in that moment, I went straight back to, oh my God, like my mum was right. He's getting bullied because he's got 2 mums, and that's why he's getting bullied. But actually, it was my lovely wife who said, this is a success story because he's been faced with this comment and he's challenged this comment. He's then gone into the class, put his hand up and said, ask the teacher what his teacher thinks about gay people. And his teachers responded, "Love is love," and that's that. And they've had a discussion. Has anybody got a problem with that? Nobody put their hands up. My little boy says, so I gave them evils. I gave them evils across the classroom. Anybody who said that. And then he outs, his family. He's like, because I've got 2 mums. So my wife was like, look, this is a success story. This is, although, yes, this has been said, but look at how he's dealt with it. Look at how the school have dealt with this and challenged this. And he feels triumphant. And he did, my son came home feeling really, really quite triumphant about that. And they are quite happy as well, interestingly, to be performative gay. He's into theatre, my son. So they do performative gay stuff to some extent within their school. They will pretend to be boyfriends, and then they will, be super squeamish about the girls. And no one cares. People are really, really quite accepting, but there still are those few children that will, people, they're still people. It's not just the children, is it? Because that's where they're hearing it from. So yeah, it's great that it's changing, and it definitely is, but there still are those really challenging areas. So going to Kate Fletcher's comment, how do you call out bad comments in the moment? Certainly calmly, and make sure you're safe to do so. I think for me, I like to repeat things a little bit louder to make sure that people can hear, and that's the advice I give my son as well. Repeat whatever has been said to you loudly, or I find being an active bystander more beneficial, because I still get taken aback by comments, and I think that I need someone to advocate for me. I'm a brilliant advocate for other people, but sometimes in the moment I need people to advocate for me. How about you, Lewis? What would be your advice?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. In the sense, I'm not very good at defending myself, but if I was to hear such a comment being made about somebody else, I will quite happily step in and say, "Do you think that was appropriate?" I mean, I would always go for the point of quietly dealing with it, just so that we don't necessarily shame somebody who may not have meant what they said. I always give people the benefit of the doubt first. So it would just be a sense of taking them aside, having a quiet conversation with them. Did they know whether that's appropriate or not? And hopefully they're saying, "Oh, I didn't realise, won't do it again," blah, 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 and we move on.
Yeah.
Repeated behaviour, depending on where we are in the work setting or education or whatever, that definitely needs to be called out and taken further.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's great advice. And I think something to note is everybody well, I say everybody, most people will feel really uncomfortable challenging those comments. They don't come naturally because you could be walking into conflict. Make sure you support the person who that was aimed at as well, would be my next piece of advice. Go and check in on them. How are you feeling? Are you okay? I noticed that. And also using I statements when speaking to whoever it is that said it. So I felt really uncomfortable when you said X, Y, and Z. Or I don't think that landed well. Explain to me what you meant by that as well. So great advice, Lewis. Thank you. And great question as well from Katie Betts. So question from Jasmine Walker's here. My sister is married to a woman and they have 2 children. Have found people ask things such as, who is the mum? I recently was asked this about my sister and I was shocked. How do you approach these sort of questions? I like to ask a question with a question. Who do you think is the mum? Ask that question. So what's the understanding of a mum? Because you've got adoptive mums, step mums, surrogate mums. You've got quite a different, so many different versions of a mum. So who do you think is a mum? What would, and then you get to the real point of the question. Oh, you want to know who carried? Well, then whose egg it is, and does it matter? Really, would also be my response. Why does that matter? So, who do you think is the mum, and why does it matter? Would be my response to that. And I think when they answer, Jasmine, when they answer that, who they think the mum is and why they think the mum is, then that answers the real question or gives you the answer to their real question. Going down to who we got. I feel that each individual, different opinions. For me, sentiment is more important than language, but whether others do not feel the same, I imagine it's the same. Yep. Good point, Lisa. No problem being called brown, mixed race, black, etc. Definitely sentiment and tone, I agree. And do you have any experience of LGBT rights being in conflict? Anastasia, yes, I do. So there's a ruling recently with an employment tribunal. It came out this week of a group of LGBT people within the Metropolitan Police who had gone to an employment tribunal saying that they were being bullied and harassed. You have to read the ruling, but that's one example of it. Also, if you have a Google, there's lots of examples of lesbian, gay, and bisexual people are less comfortable with having the T included. So yes, they're absolutely. I have experience of it. I have seen that, and for me, the way that I would approach any sort of conflict is trying to listen to both sides. I say sides, both people, both experiences, both groups. And it's a really difficult piece to navigate because the belief is protected in law. So the belief would be the part that believes that sex is binary. And then the gender reassignment is also protected in law. So not one can favour the other. You have to approach it from a very balanced perspective and be inquisitive. Why do you feel like that? what are the problems, and really try and understand. I'm happy to talk offline. If you want more advice on that, then please do.
No, I just want to
Go
add
for it,
on
Lewis.
that, not their rights being in conflict as such, but I experienced something which made me feel really uncomfortable about 6 months ago in my badminton social group, which I go to weekly. We are an inclusive club and always have been, and very much just play for fun. There's no sort of what's the word I'm looking for, standard that we require in terms of ability and stuff. And we've obviously got individuals from all walks of life. One of my friends there, she has strong opinions about the trans community, strong negative opinions, which we don't agree with, but they are her opinions, and we've talked about it before, we've debated. That's fine. However, there's a situation where we had a trans individual join our club and had been there a couple of weeks. My friend hadn't been for a couple of weeks when she was there. I organised the groups of who's playing with who, and I'd suggested my friend play on the same court as this trans individual, and she just went no, and just outright refused. And I was taken aback at first, didn't know how to take that. I accepted it at the time and thought, oh, hang on, I'll just rejig a few people, because it wasn't a big conversation that we'd had in front of everybody, so I didn't have to call it out at the time. But afterwards I said, hang on a minute, we are an inclusive club. You can't pick and choose who you're playing with, and that is discriminatory behaviour. And she had a go at me back, and we had a bit of a falling out over it. But it's a reminder as well, to going back to what we were saying, what Kate, you said initially at the point of this call, was we are a community, but just because we are all in LGBTQ doesn't necessarily mean that we're all representative of each other and we all know what's going on for each other and we all know what difficulties are had. We all face different discriminatory behaviours, and we need to be allies for each other, as well as have allies that are not in the community as well. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Lewis. Thank you. And I know it's a really boring answer, but it's one that is relevant, is to fall back on policy with those challenges of revisiting that policy and making sure that you're directing people to that policy. I mean, we won't get into the debate of trans people within sport, because that is a debate in itself,
Exactly.
and policies and law have changed very recently. But always fall back on that policy of what club people have joined and what those policies, inclusive policies, are. Because there are some, of course, there's going to be examples of when that person would be well within their right to challenge that. But equally so, there's going to be those times when they're not within the right to challenge that. So again, fall back on those policies and make sure they're all within the realms of the law. So going to Paul's question, do you think that being part of the LGBTQ plus community carries stigma? What do you think, Lewis? Do you think that being part of the LGBT carries stigma?
Just remind me the word stigma again. Sorry to be a bit thick.
No. Don't trash talk yourself. No. This is a lovely call. No. So, do you think there's a stigma, as in, I guess it would be a negative connotation attached? If you're part of the LGBT community, you are X, Y, Z would be stigma.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we can refer back to the over-sexualizing comments. There's also, oh, that was one thing I wanted to pick up earlier, but my internal stigma of, oh, I can't be my true self around straight men at work because I feel intimidated by them. And this all stems from just being completely bullied as a kid and not feeling that I could be myself. And that's internally just got it in the back of my head now, that I can't feel confident around heterosexual men in the workplace that are of authority. That was the other thing. So yeah, I do think there is a stigma, but a lot of it for me is my own internal stigma.
Thank you. And yes, it does. And I think It absolutely does. And I think one way to tackle that is, I don't think Paul has given the answer actually, we're less likely to talk openly about it. So let's talk openly about it. That is the solution. That is the one solution for mental health, is to talk openly about it. It's a solution for any stigma, is to start creating spaces where we can be heard, be listened to, have compassion and empathy, and be inquisitive, and not just listening to that first answer. Because this is something that I just loved about you, Louis. The first time I heard you speak about your experiences was being so open. I didn't even consider that as a white a white gay guy, that you would feel intimidated by heterosexual guys of authority. Didn't even occur to me that would be a thing, and something that you struggle with. So without these safe space, open conversations, that's where the stigma, I think, will continue to take over. And it's so important that we create these spaces where people can learn, but also people can find companionship and solidarity, and people who have, although we don't have the same experiences, we have similar experiences. And I know that I would be able to have a conversation with you in trust, and with empathy. And I think creating these spaces really celebrates that within the community and externally as well. And then I think there's just one more thing here, that Chloe from ISS, shout out to Chloe from ISS. A question for us both before we go. We've only got probably less than a minute now. So a lot of progress has been made in LGBTQ plus space. What is one thing, if you can think of only one, that you think needs more progress, and what you want to see? It can be from community members, allies, workplace, government, etc.
For me personally, it's just more engagement with this type of call, and for us guys to continue the conversation, because the more people that attend these and more people get awareness of the Pride community, then the word gets out, people feel more comfortable, and we should all feel a bit more that we can be more ourselves in every environment.
Love that. Thanks, Louis. And for me, it would be a real understanding of, I am not a fan of being lumped together under one umbrella. I think that work needs to be done separately for LGBT people, and the Q plus, of course, as well, to really understand and to really make progress. So for me, I'm a gay woman with a 12-year-old. I'm nearly 42, so I'm going to be going through menopause soon. So what support? What does menopausal two women who live together and in a relationship look like? Because that's something that's not spoken about, right? So that's just one example that's going to be very different for me, that is going to be different for you. And I think understanding those nuances, instead of lumping us all together as one happy family, but actually let's break it down and make sure that we are firstly reflective of society, of the LGBT society, so all voices are heard, and two, really, really working towards coming together but treating us as individuals as opposed to one acronym. And that, I think, what have we got next? Oh, we've got a little AI generated image of this lovely lady here. What will you take with you? So we've had one acronym, many stories. It contains, obviously, as you know, diverse experiences and identities. No single person can represent everyone. It's okay not to know, but not okay not to care. So be curious, always curious and respectful. Be an active ally. For those of you who know me, I am a huge advocate for everybody apart from me. And I need someone to advocate for me in the moments where it takes my breath away at some of the comments that have been said to me. One person who speaks up when they hear a harmful comment can change the culture of a team. And for further support, make sure you contact your employee resource groups, your DEI lead, and or me at Dial Global. Thank you all for listening. And for more information about Dial Global Index 2025, which will be launched very, very soon, drop me an email or at the hello@dialglobal.org for more information. It's a wonderful benchmarking piece of work, a global benchmarking piece of work where we can look at the top performers in diversity and inclusion and advise people how to be better for next year. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for the great communication and the great comments and the questions and everything else. And thank you very much to Louis for joining us.
Yeah, thank you everyone. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Thanks
Have a good
all.
week.
Bye.